Well, thank you for joining us for another session of Dynamics Nav training. Today's session focuses on purchase order entry and the best practices for simply entering purchase orders in Dynamics NAV. Today's presentation will be conducted using Dynamics Nav 2009 in the Classic client. With purchase order entry, we'll be covering a basic overview of the form used for entering purchase orders. We'll take a look at some key fields, number series being one of them. What's a buy from, a pay to, and what's an alternate vendor order address? We'll look at currency considerations in dealing with purchase order entry and posting. Item availability, the information that we use to make decisions about what we want to purchase and when do we need to have it. Vendor item numbers and cross-references. We'll also examine how extended text behaves. Multi-line descriptions for our products. We'll look at line comments for behind-the-scene comments that are related to a specific line. We'll look at purchase order comments that are stored on the header of a document. We'll look at how to best use standard text codes. And we'll talk about warehouse management considerations. So in purchase order entry, the number series allows us to have vendor or user specific ranges. So if we have trade payables and purchase orders versus operational purchase orders, we can segregate those into separate unique number series. We could have number series for the government bid purchase orders versus the that side of business, or a brand or a business unit type differentiation. We could also have number series automate the assignment of a purchase order series number set based on dates. We can also have on a purchase order a relationship of a buy from, a pay to vendor that might be different, and we can select multiple buy from order addresses when we process purchase orders. If we're perhaps sending our vehicle to pick product up or purchasing it from a specific vendor location, the system supports multiple vendor order addresses. Those values are adopted from a vendor master record. The ship to addresses, those can be updated on the fly, and those are typically defaulted from our location that we're purchasing for. So in Dynamics Nav 2009, if we go to the purchase menu from our navigation pane and we call up under order processing the order function, we can see a purchase order screen. On our basic purchase order, you'll notice multiple tabs of data. The General tab incorporates who am I buying this order from, with the vendor number, the contact at the vendor I'm ordering from, in this case, Mr. Richard Brady from Coolwood Technologies. I can see the posting description will default to the order number, but that can be revised if I want to have a different GL posting description that will accommodate the posting to accounts payable when this transaction is recognized. The posting date, the order date, and the document date can be 3 independent dates. The document date is what drives the due date for a posted invoice. Typically, they'll be the same, and they default to the day we're entering an order. Something to be careful about. The vendor's order number, if it converted from a quotation, the vendor shipment number, the vendor's invoice number. As soon as we have it, this is the field we key that value into to post the invoice against the purchase order. Our invoicing tab has who am I paying. If I'm buying from a vendor that has multiple buy from addresses or actual vendor codes, but I pay to a consolidation vendor, a national account perhaps, a parent, we can create a pay to vendor link on the vendor record, and the pay to vendor details will default on our invoicing tab. Our due date is calculated based on the document date on the General tab. It also drives the calculation of a payment discount date, all based on our terms code. All of this data defaults from the vendor. The shipping defaults from the location that we're purchasing to. I can choose to purchase to a unique location, which will update this information. You can also purchase to multiple locations on one PO, but the default information specified on the purchase header will be the default location for that supplier. You'll also notice the sell to customer. In the event that this is a direct fulfillment or a drop ship order that is going to fulfill a customer's order, we can specify which customer number and the customer's ship to, which could be their distribution center or their specific job site, but it will pull that data directly onto the shipping tab. Foreign trade, e-commerce, prepayment are other tabs that we may talk about in a bit. When we look at the line items, you'll see information relating to what is the type of line. Is it an item, a GL account, a fixed asset, or a charge, which is a cost that can be allocated back to inventory. On this specific order, it could relate to these items, or it can be after the fact. The beauty of the item charge is that it allocates and adjusts the actual cost of that layer of inventory. So depending on your costing method, item charges can be a way to make corrections without having to create credit memos and fresh invoices, to adjust cost, and on the selling side, to adjust revenue. So we get accurate statistics for both units and dollars. My line items, the item number, the description, the location, the quantity, and we're going to enter some orders. So let's just start with a brand new order. So as the best practice, it is critical that we click anywhere on the header. Not really important what field you're on. You don't even need to be on the General tab. And we click F3 or click the new icon from the taskbar. The system will bring up an untitled purchase order. Now, if I press my Enter key, the system will automatically assign the next number series based on the order's number series that I was on when I pressed F3. Alternatively, you can click on the Assist Edit and select the number series. And if we have series relationships established, there might be multiple number series available to select from. Those number series include the starting number and ending number, the last date used, the last number issued. Do we default numbers? Are we permitted to enter manual numbers? Are they issued in date order? And underneath the numbers, we can establish the starting date and the information associated with starting numbers and ending numbers and the increment. Do I increase by ones, by tens? Now I need to select the vendor. We want to purchase from Coolwood. So I'll just type in COO, and the system, using its auto search capability, will find the first vendor that fits that criteria. It applies the vendor number and selects the default contact, which is the default buy from contact from the vendor. You can also use a list and search on any part of any field. On the vendor card, you can see that on my General tab, I have default information like a purchaser code. I have their search name. On the Invoicing tab, who's the pay to vendor? What's their tax liability? What tax area are they in? Do they have discount codes? All this information defaults directly to my purchase order header. So all I really needed to do was insert a new one for a purchase order, hit the Enter key, and select my vendor. I'm now ready to enter my line items. If there were multiple buy from order addresses, they would appear directly in the vendor information fact box. I can see the contacts, and I can access with a single click the purchase history. Let's see everything I purchased from Coolwood Technologies. A beautiful element of this screen is that it illustrates for us what's currently on a purchase quote, a blanket, on other purchase orders. So I have purchase orders outstanding right now for these manuals for the loudspeakers, some 10 pallets of loudspeakers. They're on PO 104001, 104006. So I can see exactly what's outstanding. What have I bought before? Posted receipts. I want to buy some more of these Paris guest chairs, and I want to buy some of these storage units with a glass door. So I'm going to hold down my control key, and I'm going to select these two lines, and I'm going to click Copy to Document. When I do that, it automatically will bring those line items into this order, making it very efficient for me to key in new purchase orders manually. Certainly in my book as a best practice. You can see that the system has defaulted the location that I purchased these products for previously. So I can see that the 1900S Paris guest chair in black was purchased for my yellow warehouse. I have 160 as the net available quantity of that product in the warehouse. Let's take a look at that 160. And I can see I have 160 pieces on hand. I have none on sales order, none on kit lines as components. My expected and available are 160 pieces. This availability view demonstrates for us a trendscape where I can look at daily availability, weekly, monthly, quarterly. Let's look at a different product and examine availability. If I look at the LS manual for the loudspeakers and we look in the white warehouse, you'll see that I have 421 available. If we drill down, you can see my gross requirement for that period, the quarter one or monthly, the month of January, gross requirement 69 pieces, on hand 140, 250 units are on purchase order for my white warehouse. The 69, this is my demand, the gross requirement of quantity on sales order. This value would accumulate production demand or kit component demand to show me my total overall gross requirement. And my expected inventory as a result of this transaction, 321 pieces. And you can see as I scroll down, the 100 pieces that I have on purchase order in February are going to increase my supply to 421 pieces. The biggest difference between the expected column and the available column, this is very important. Available takes the net available as of any moment in time. It ignores the date sensitivity. So you can see I have 71 available back in May of 2010. That's based on 140 on hand, less a gross requirement of 69 units. However, the expected column is time sensitive. So that says you're going to have plenty. You have 140 on hand. So it's just important that you're aware of the difference in those two fields. When entering a purchase order, based on the information on screen, if I wanted to go ahead and let's just change this to our blue warehouse, I'm going to bring in 100 pieces. The system will automatically update and bring forward my information into my fact box. So it's important to understand that these are real-time informational fields. In terms of currency, it's important that when a purchase order is entered, that it has a default posting date. If we leave that blank and select a vendor that has a currency code, the system will give us an issue because it's trying to calculate the line-based costs based on the current exchange rate in the system, considering the posting date for that transaction. If the posting date's blank, we can't have foreign currency vendors. So it's important that the setup option for purchase and payables, default posting date blank, not be enabled. so that the system will default the posting date to the work date when we enter an order. As far as spot rate entry, we have the ability on a purchase order, and let's just establish that this was $1 as a cost in US dollars. But on the foreign trade tab, we're going to indicate that we're using a foreign currency. In this example, we're going to do this as euros. The euro will delete the purchase lines and new purchase lines will be created. So the direct unit cost on these lines were cleared. You'll notice I didn't have a default cost on these manuals, so the system left that blank, even though I had keyed in $1. Something to be very careful about. The direct unit cost field is my foreign currency cost. So if I was to go ahead and view show column, you'll see that there is not just direct unit cost as a field, but there is unit cost $. If we take a look at unit cost $, you'll see that it's 150 US dollars, which is 121 euro. Now, what's that based upon? The exchange rate utilized on a foreign currency purchase is based on the information keyed in on the header. We can enter a spot rate, so it's $1.50 for 1 euro. We can go ahead and change that, and you'll notice that it leaves my euro cost fixed, as that's what I pay the vendor, but you'll notice this now went to $182. So you're in complete control of entering manual overrides and spot rates when we post a transaction. Considering currency, when I post this transaction and recognize the inventory, it goes into the inventory at this dollar value and will not adjust. If I invoice it at 121 euro with a rate of $1.50 US per euro, the system will post that inventory value at $182 a unit. If I then pay that bill in the future and the rate is $1.45 as an example, where I have a 5-cent gain on currency, that gain or loss hits the gain or loss account but does not flow back into inventory. That is simply a gain or loss on currency exchange, which is really financing. The inventory stays locked at its cost value when the invoice was posted. We spoke a bit about item availability, but there are two other ways we can examine inventory. We can look at items across all locations or by location, and we can look at item availability by period. Let's take a look at that. So right on this line, if I go to line item availability by, I have period, variant, and location. Let's look by period. So by period, I can see the same type of trendscape view for the product. And as I scroll down, you can see what's happening with that item. That's across all locations. And it's for all variants. Variants could be flavors, colors, sizes. There are a number of ways to deploy variant, and it's a very specific and specialized area that is not fully engaged throughout the entire system. It's very important to understand if you're going to use variants, and that's another Dynamics Nav training session on its own. If we look at line item availability by location, and let's look at the guest chair or the storage unit, line item availability by location, you can see for each one of our warehouse locations, blue, green, red, silver, white, yellow, and those could be internal locations, those could be multiple warehouses, they could be in other countries. The system will store for us and give us the ability to see, as of a specific date, what's our expected or available, our quantities. You can see that I've got to fix an issue that's taken place in our red warehouse. We've actually gone negative for some reason. That is also controllable through setup options and inventory control. Vendor item numbers can be established as a default value so that they can be presented on purchase order documents, the report that we print, an email that we send to a vendor. We can store an unlimited number of item cross-references. So if I go to the Innsbruck storage unit and we click on the item card, on our replenishment tab, we can enter the default source of supply, the default vendor, and that vendor's part number. And we can also, under the item button, go to cross-references and enter an unlimited number of cross-references for multiple vendors with their part number, barcodes, which could be a UPC code or an SKU or however your organization represents product identification. We can also have customer-specific or blank cross-reference types. Blank cross-references are usable everywhere. So in this case, I could call this a 123, and I could give it a unique description. It's the special storage unit. When I establish that cross-reference for this specific product, I can then show column and use the item cross-reference number field to enter new items on my orders. You'll notice that when I type that in, 123, it brings in the regular part number, as well as, in this example, the vendor or the universal part number, and an override or a unique description. Extended text is a way that we can establish multi-line text descriptions for our products. Those descriptions can be unique and used on purchase orders and can have different text for sales orders or for service orders throughout the system. Let's take a look at extended text. So on this same item, the 1964W, let's go ahead and enter a multi-line text description. We'll do that by using item, and we'll call up the extended text function, and we'll create a new record, and we'll put in here, this storage unit contains incorporates an excellent finish and glass door. This product is imported from Italy. This could be used on sales documents. If I turn this off, turn off all these items, that extended text will now not be injected onto sales documents, but I have it injected onto purchase orders, and we'll go ahead and I'll say automatic extended text. So now, when I choose that item, and I'm going to copy from the line above, F8, and I hit enter, the system will copy that line item directly down into my lines of text. In terms of the injection of automatic extended text, it is also important that we specify which language that text comes in for. So you'll notice nothing came in. If I turn on and say use that for all language codes, this vendor may have a specific language code set up that is different. So now that I've set that up, when I copy that line item in, you'll see how the text automatically now injects. The power of that allows you to have unique extended text descriptions based on a vendor's language code. And we set up the language code on each vendor card. It's very, very powerful. We also have the ability, if I delete this one line, it will delete the extended text that was injected with that line. So the system remembers with extended text that it is married to the previous line. Similarly, we have line comment capability and header comment capability. If we take a look at line comments, we go to line comments, we can go ahead and indicate this line item was on shipment, or the line item was partially received, or these are not typically to be utilized for printing on documents, although there is capability to include them in the email solution if you deploy Lanham email as a extension to the purchasing area. Supplier has back ordered 5 pieces. So now when the receiving takes place, we have a special comment tied to this specific line item, just under line comments. We also have header comments, and those header comments are indicated by this little pencil. So if I click here, you'll notice that the comment sheet now marries that comment from the line to our header, giving us the capability to have line-specific comments, but also to see all comments related to the order from the comment worksheet. Warehouse management considerations. When we process purchase orders, it is important to consider which locations the line items are coming into. And within each warehouse, notice if I look at the location card for the blue warehouse, the blue warehouse does not require receiving, shipping, put away, picking, bin locations, automated data capture systems, which are radio frequency handhelds. It does not require bins. If I was to look at another warehouse, like our white warehouse, it requires automated data collection. So handheld devices, picking, putting away, receiving. It directs where to put and it directs where to pick from and has default bins for all transactions that take place. Based on your organization's workflow, the purchase order location code drives the warehouse functions, where we might be able to simply post and receive goods directly from the PO, or we have to go through a function where we create either an inventory put away directly from the PO, or we create a warehouse receipt document, which sends the line items that will be received to a receiving master document, which will be handled by the warehouse and registered to record that the product has been received. NAV 2009 incorporates prepayment functionality. If this vendor required prepayment, the prepayment rules can be established on the header as a default for the whole order, or line by line. We can establish, if I show the columns that are not turned on, the prepayment information can be established on each line. So the prepayment percentage, customer requires 50% deposit on this specific line item, as an example. The system then allows us to post prepayment invoices. The nice part of prepayment invoices is now when you have to send funds in advance to a supplier associated with a purchase order, you don't have to just post the payment and leave it on account and then remember to apply it when the invoice is updated or posted. This will do that in advance so that we have a document to post a check against. Document approvals. NAV 2009 incorporates functionality that allows approval limits and approval levels for each user. Based on that, we can go ahead and try to release an order. And based on the approval limits and the dollar value for the order, we have the ability to send an approval request, cancel an approval request, and an approver has the ability to review the approval request entries and process the approval prior to us being permitted to release a purchase order. Normally, purchase orders are not keyed in manually. Although we have the ability to do that and purchase orders may be adjusted manually, the best practice is to utilize the requisition worksheet. The requisition worksheet considers the static parameters established on an item or stock keeping unit card to consider the reorder policy, that I order to a maximum quantity or I order based on a fixed reorder quantity or order for order or lot for lot for component planning, to determine what's the quantity that I need to purchase based on maybe it's simply negative available or based on a manually forecasted targeted weeks of supply. The requisition worksheet considers what's on hand, what's on sales order, what's on other purchase orders, and most importantly, when do you need the product, based on your planning horizon, and suggests for you line items. Based on your review of those lines, you accept the plan, and the system will then push those into a purchase order for you, so you don't have to go through and manually create your purchase order. A couple of enhancements to purchase order processing. One is eReceive. Now, eReceive is really an extension of purchase receiving more than purchase order processing. The power of eReceive is that it validates what's being received against the purchase orders. We also have some abilities within eReceive to post a fast receipt of goods directly from the purchase order screen. Instead of utilizing the simplistic requisition worksheet, which uses static planning controls and parameters, advanced forecasting and procurement is a forecasting engine that considers historical usage down to the customer level and considers, by reforecasting the past, multiple formulas are tested to determine the best fitting formula based on the usage history for a product. This information is utilized to drive out the forecast for an item and suggests a purchase order based on the dynamically calculated numbers. It also considers a vendor's buying target. If there's a minimum order size or a optimized container quantity, those are considered in the calculation. I hope you found this session useful on purchase order processing and picked up some of the best practices associated with utilizing Dynamics Nav 2009. Thank you and have a great day.